Hello everybody, it's Tom Seidner, the Lonely Gamer, and today we're going to look at Tyrants of the Underdark. Tyrants of the Underdark was one of my most anticipated games of Gen Con 2016. I actually heard about this game about 6 months ago, and everything about it drew me to it. It's a deck building game. It's based on the Underdark, so it's based on the Dark Elves or the Drow. And I love the Drow. Dritz Diorden is one of my favorite characters, and I've read all the stories that have him in it, and I really love that genre. And so when I heard that they were making a game based on this IP, I was very, very excited about it. So I'm going to change the camera so you can see the board, and we'll take a look at what's going on in Tyrants of the Underdark. Okay, so Tyrants of the Underdark is a game for 2 to 4 players. It was designed by Peter Lee and Rodney Thompson. One of the other things that really drew me to this game is I absolutely love Lords of Waterdeep, and the 2 guys that designed Lords of Waterdeep are the same 2 guys that designed this game. So I really had high hope for this game. So let me tell you how the game plays, and we'll see if I liked it or not. So first of all, the game comes with the main board, which is right here. Some people have complained about the artwork on the main board, but I actually kind of like the artwork. I don't like the artwork on my boards to actually just kind of detract from the game. It's very subtle, but if you look really close, you can see some really pretty icons in the background that kind of, depict the Drow and the Drow civilization. It does come with a separate board for your cards, which I actually like. This makes it very easy to move this board to the best location on the table so that it's not all, in one location where you can't move it. You also get a player board for each player. This is an example of the player board. It gives the person turn order on there, and it also tells them some things that they can spend their influence on and their power right there. You get 4 different Drow civilizations. You get Mizoram, Exlorin, Benri, and Bersin del Armgo. Now, the one thing that I was disappointed about with this game is there's no House Duorden. So hopefully maybe there'll be an expansion and they'll do a House Duorden, but currently there is not, and I was kind of sad about that. Each player also gets a little temple circle thing. I don't know what exactly you would call this, but this is a temple for each player, and they can use that to promote some of their recruits, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Each player also gets a set of cards. These are the starter cards. This is a deck builder, so you're going to have starter cards, so you get 7 nobles and 3 soldiers. Nobles will give you influence, and soldiers will give you power. Each player also gets 5 spies. Let me see if I can get that up there so you can see the little spy very good. So each player has 5 spies, and they'll use those throughout the game. And each player also gets 40 tokens. So here's what one of the tokens looks like. They're very small. There are red player, blue player, black player, and orange player. Each one has a specific token to use. All of the tokens are designed like this, so they have kind of a shield with a little base. I will say one thing, I found these tokens to be horrible. They are very fiddly, and when you try to lay them down, they tend to fall over, and you find yourself fiddling with them a lot. So I have actually replaced mine with standard cubes. So when I play with my game group, we actually use standard cubes instead of the tokens, because these are just easier to throw down and put them where they need to go. They don't fall over, and they don't give you any trouble. Another thing, if you buy this game, be very careful and make sure you count all your tokens. You're supposed to have 40 of these for each color. And I've heard rumors of a lot of people having extras, but unfortunately I had one not enough. So I actually only had 39 of these tokens in the red, but I contacted Gale Force 9, and they gladly sent me another red. So now I have a full set of tokens, even though I'm not even using them now. Now I'm using the cubes. But I want to have them in case I ever get rid of the game. I want to be able to have the original parts. So how do you set up the game? So the first thing you do to set up the game is you put out the board, you put out the cardboard, You decide how many players are going to be in the game. The board has these dotted lines here, which actually denote areas that you can't use if you're doing a certain number of players. So if you're playing a 2-player game, you only use this area in the middle within these 2 dotted lines. If you're playing a 3-player game, you're going to use the middle section and one of the side sections, and you can choose. Usually we choose the one that is the closest to the player. If you're playing a 4-player game, then you're going to use all 3 sections of the board. Once you have the number of players determined, and I've got this board set up for a 2-player, once you have the number of sections determined, you go ahead and put out the white neutral troops. These are neutral troops. These troops are ones that all the players can take over and try to, gain influence in those areas. You place all of the white troops on the sections that are marked with a little X. I don't know if you can see this very well, but some of these round sections have an X. When you set up the game, you go ahead and put white troops where the X's are. One thing I will say, it's kind of easy to miss some of the sections, and as you notice, I missed one here, so I'm going to go ahead and put a white one there. You also put out all of the different city tokens. So each city has a token. It looks like this. It has the name of the city on it. It also has +1 influence on it. So if you control this city, you get +1 influence. And if you have total control of the city, you're going to get +1 influence and +1 victory point. And you get those every turn. Some cities are worth more than others. This city is the largest city, and so it is actually worth 3 victory points per turn if you can gain total control. Now, gaining total control is a lot harder than it sounds. So let's talk about that real quick. Let's talk about control. So in this game, there are 2 primary principles that you have to look at. One is control, and one is presence. You have to have control of an area to take the chip from that area. You also have to have presence within an area to be able to do a lot of the actions that you can do on your turn. So, how do I have control? Well, first of all, you can have control of an area by having more of your tokens in an area than any other person. So if I have a token here, there's 2 spots, I have the majority, I have control of that area. Now if I had all the spots filled, let's say I had another token here, then I would have total control of this area. So control is having the majority of your troops in the area. Having total control is having all the troops in the area and all the spaces being filled. Here I would have control, but not total control, because not all of the spaces are filled. Also, here I would have control because I have more of my troops than any other troop. Now what about presence? Well, having presence means that you are in the general location. So here I have presence to this location. I also have presence to all of the connecting circles to this location. So if I had a card that said you can assassinate a troop, I could only assassinate a troop that I have presence to. So I could assassinate this troop, but I could not assassinate this troop because I do not have presence to that troop. Now one of the things that will gain you presence are your spies. Now spies don't have a way to be put out other than cards. The only way to get them out on the board is cards, or cards that say place a spy. But if you play a card that says place a spy and you place the spy in a location, you now have presence in that location. So now if I wanted to assassinate a troop, I could assassinate any troop here, any of these troops surrounding here, because I now have presence. Your spies also remove total control from other players. So if the blue player had this area filled up, he would have total control of this location. He would take this chip, he would set it in front of him, he would flip it over because he has total control, and every turn he would get 1 extra influence and 3 victory points. The victory points are given out with these victory point chips, so on his turn he would just take 3 victory points and put them in front of him. They would put them in his trophy hall. So all the things that you get that are going to give you points go in your trophy hall. But on my turn, I could take my spy, I could put it in this location. Now he does not have total control anymore, so he would have to flip this over. Now he only gets 1 influence on his turn and not the 3 victory points. Now, on his turn, he could play a card, and a card could say, return someone else's spy. So he would take my spy, give it back to me, and then he would now have total control again. He can do that on his turn and still get the 3 victory points on his turn, because victory points are awarded at the end of your turn. Now this is the market, and the market is where you're going to build up your hand. So just like in any other deck builder, you're going to try to get worthless cards out of your hand and better cards into your hand. And the way you're going to get better cards into your hand is through the market. So on your turn, you're going to draw 5 cards. And then you're going to have, at the start anyway, 2 options. You're going to have influence, which are noted by these spider webs, and you're going to have power, which is noted by these swords and shields. So on your player board, it's going to tell you the things you can do with power. So if you look at your player board, it's going to say that you can spend 1 power to deploy a troop. You can spend 3 power to assassinate a troop, or you can spend 3 power to return an enemy spy. Alright? So, for one of these, I could play one of these, and I say I'm going to deploy a troop, and I could deploy one of my troops to any location that I have presence to. So I could, currently I could deploy a troop here, here, or here, because I have presence to those locations. If I had a spy out, let's say I had a spy out here, then I could deploy one of my troops to this location. Alright? Spies can be put on any little pointy thing on the board. So any pointy area on the board, you see these little pointy things on the cities and the little pointy things on these locations. A spy can go on to any one of those points. Locations can have multiple spies. So you can have your spy and 2 other player spies at the same locations. Spies do not add to influence. So this spy would not give me control in this area, even if it was the only thing there. So if I put a spy here, I would still not have control of this area. But if I put a spy there and then I put a troop there, like this, then I would have control. A spy does, however, remove total control. So if the blue player had all of his figures here, then my spy being in this location would remove total control from him. The other thing you can do is if I had 3 of these, I could assassinate a troop. I do have to have presence to that troop, but I could just assassinate a troop. I could assassinate a white troop, or I could assassinate anybody else's troop, troops of other colors, as long as I have presence to that troop. When you assassinate a troop, that also goes in your trophy hall. So your trophy hall is down here at the bottom of your board. So you can put victory points in your trophy hall, and you can put troops in your trophy hall. Now, influence. I'm going to use my influence to buy cards to put into my deck. So I have 4 influence. If I would happen to have control of a location, I would add that to my influence, and I would have 5 influence. So I'm going to take my 5 influence, I'm going to look at the cards in the market, and I notice that this card costs 5, but these cards cost 4, and this card costs 1. So I could buy this one, see what comes up next, and then I could buy this one and see what comes up here. Once I'm done making my purchases, these cards go into my discard pile. Once I'm done with my turn, these cards go into my discard pile as well, the ones that I played. And then I draw a hand of 5 more cards. If my deck runs out, like it did here, when I'm finished with this turn, I will shuffle my deck and create a new deck to draw from. Now, we talked about how to get better cards into our deck, but how do we get worthless cards out of our deck? Well, the nice thing about this game is there's a thing called promotion. And what you do is you actually promote your cards and get them out of your deck. It not only thins your deck and gives you a better deck of better cards, it also gives you more points at the end of the game. Because every card has a deck value and a promotion value right here. So this card in my deck at the end of the game would only be worth 0 points. I would get no points at all for this card because it's a starter card. But this card at the end of the game, if promoted, would actually give me 1 point. Now, to promote cards, there's cards that you can buy. You can't just, there's no promote action other than on cards. But when you buy cards, some of the cards will say at the end of your turn, promote a card you played this turn. So what you do is you play all your cards as normal, and then at the end of your turn you pick one of the cards that you want to promote and you put it into your temple. Just like that. Once it's promoted, you don't use it anymore. You can't use it anymore till the end of the game, but at the end of the game you will get to score up the promoted value that's on the card. There are a couple cards that are always for sale. The Priestess of Loth, which will give you 2 influence. There's several of those down there, and you can buy them until the stack is gone. It is worth 1 point in your deck and 2 points if promoted. There's also the House Guard, which is 2 power, also worth 1 point in your deck and 3 points if promoted. Those are also there available to anyone to buy until the deck runs out. So, we know about our 3 main actions that we can do: deploy, assassinate, and return. On the cards, there are other actions that you can do that are not represented in your basic actions. One of them is place a spy. So you can see on this card says place a spy. Most of the times the cards that let you place a spy also let you return a spy for a benefit. So in this case, if I already had a spy out on the board, I could return that spy and draw 3 cards. So these cards are pretty powerful. The spies are very powerful in the game and let you not only have influence in an area, but they also let you do a lot of combos off of the cards. Some cards will let you assassinate troops. This one lets you assassinate 2 troops. It says assassinate 2 troops, so you can assassinate any troop, either white ones or other players. Some cards say assassinate 2 white troops, and that would limit you to only white troops. So here's some other things that the cards will let you do. This card says supplant a white troop. A supplant is an assassinate and a deploy. Okay? So what you do is you remove a troop. You have to have presence, but you would remove a troop from the board that you have presence to. So I have presence to all of these, so I could actually remove this troop and supplant it with one of my troops. This troop that you remove goes into your trophy hall. This is one of those cards that allows you to promote a card. At the end of your turn, you can promote a card into your temple. This card lets you devour a card in the market, so you could take a card that you didn't want somebody else to get here, and you could put it here where it says devoured cards, and then it's out of play and out of the game. No points for anybody. This card allows you to deploy 3 troops, so some of the cards allow you to deploy multiple troops. This card allows you to move an enemy troop, and sometimes this can be very strategic. So what you can do is if somebody is encroaching on your area, you can move them so that now they're encroaching on somebody else's area. Now when you move a troop, you have to have presence to the troop that you're going to move to start with, but you don't have to have presence to where you move them. You can move them anywhere on the board as long as it's still within the play area. And then this card is a very powerful card in the game because it lets you supplant a troop, and it lets you supplant any troop, either a white troop or a other player's troop. And then there's also cards that allow you to supplant troops anywhere on the board where you don't even have presence. So a lot of the cards will actually break some of the rules within the game. So these cards are also an interesting note because when you play this game, they've got things called half decks. And each half deck is put together with another half deck in order to play the game. Now the game comes with 4 half decks. Here we have the Drow half deck, noted by this little spider symbol here, and the Dragon half deck, noted by this little dragon head here. So these have been put together, shuffled together to make a deck for the game. But the game also comes with an elemental deck, and it also comes with a demon half deck. And you can mix those cards in any order you want, as long as you just put 2 decks together to make a full deck. Now, the Drow deck and the Dragon deck are the easiest decks to play. The Elemental and the Demons actually add in some other things to make the game a little more complex. The Demons add in the ability to make the people insane, and you can give them insane outcast cards. It's kind of like the Witch card in Dominion. And the Elementals actually give you the ability to combo off of the card. So they'll have a thing that here says if you've already played this type of card, then you can do this. So they add some combos to the game. But it's very interesting, the different half decks that you can use to make the game a little different when you play. So how does the game end? Well, there's two ways that the game can end. If any player plays their last troop onto the board, so let's say these were my last 3 troops, I would place them out there onto the board. If I was the first player, then everybody else would get a turn, and then the game would end. If I was the last player, then as soon as I placed my last pieces, the game would end. So it always goes back to the last player. So that's one way the game can end. The other way the game can end is if this market deck ever runs out. If you ever cannot fill the market from the market deck, the game also immediately ends. Once the game is done, you tally up your score. There's several things that give you the score. First thing you do is you tally up the VP value of each site you control. So if you control a site, like I control this site, I don't have total control, but I still control it, so I would get 3 points for this site. So every site that you control, you get the victory points for that are located on the site. Then you would get 2 points for every site that you have total control for. Now remember, if somebody has their spy at your site, you do not have total control. But as long as you have all the things there and nobody has a spy there, you have total control. So I would get an extra 2 points for this location. You also get 1 victory point for every troop in your trophy hall that you've killed during the game. You also get a victory point for each card in your deck. So each card that's in your deck at the end of the game, you get the card victory, the lower of the victory points. You also get a victory point for each promoted card, and you get the promoted value for that. And you also get victory points for all your victory tokens. It comes with the game comes with a convenient scoring pad here that you write down all your different scores, you total it up, and the person with the most score is the winner. I really like this game. This is a great game. I love playing it, and even most of my people in the game group like it. I have a couple people in my game group that are very finicky about the games they like, but they like this game also. So this is a very good game, a very solid game. All the things that I have about the game that I don't like are very nitpicky. One is these little tokens that fall over a lot and are kind of hard to flip over. Another one is trying to remember your tokens. You have to make sure you pay attention. If somebody takes your control, you got to make sure you pay attention to flip this over. And when you do have control, you have to make sure that you pay attention and get your extra influence and your extra VP on your turn. Other than that, I don't have any issues with the game, other than I wish they had the Dorden house, but maybe that's coming in a future expansion. So this has been Tyrants of the Underdark, a very solid game by Gale Force 9 and Wizards of the Coast. I highly recommend you give it a shot because I think you'll really like the game. If you like Lords of Waterdeep, I think you'll really like this game. The interesting thing is that there's nothing new in this game. There's no real new concepts, but they kind of took a deck builder, area control, and card promotion and kind of rolled it up into one game, and they did a very good job about rolling all those concepts into the same game. So I highly recommend you check it out. So that's it for this video, and until next time, happy gaming!